Hello everyone, I just want to share a thought with you concerning our relationship with the Lord, concerning our prayers. To have a relationship with the Lord, to have a life of prayer is something so fundamental, it's something so important in the Christian life, and that's why He wants us to have that kind of relationship. When the Israelites, went through the desert, they complained, they fell into sin, into temptations, and that was the reason why they fell into that, because they lack that relationship with the Lord. And why we're talking about desert, why did they go through a desert? There's a purpose with that. What our relationship with the Lord consists of, it consists of our prayer life with Him, and this is something so important. But sometimes we may see that He doesn't always answer our prayers, He doesn't answer our requests, and the Lord is not somebody that you just wish something to happen, He just accomplishes your desires. He's not the genie of the bottle that you just ask Him something, He will do it for you. Of course He can do that, He's all powerful, almighty, but there's something else, that requires that relationship to happen in our lives. Sometimes what we may ask is not good in front of Him. Sometimes what we may ask might hurt us. It's not good for us as well, and that's why He doesn't always answer us. Sometimes what we're asking, maybe it's not the right time for us to receive it, and He's letting us wait, but He knows best. And sometimes He might not answer us in terms of we might feel Him apart from us, we might feel Him distant from us. He might not be so close to us with His presence. We might not feel that happiness, that joy within our hearts. And this is called a desert. This is called a trial that we're going through. But why going through a trial and the desert is so important? In Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 2 it says, "And you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and test you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep His commandments or not." And this verse talking about the purpose of the desert. Why did the children of Israel went through a desert? And it says that He led them all that way for 40 years to humble them, to test them, to know what was in their heart. Obviously He knows what is in our heart, but He wanted to see their reaction as well. He wanted to test them. There was a purpose for the desert, and the purpose was also for them to know what was in their heart, because when I go through a desert, when I go through a trial, I start examining myself. Why do I examine myself? Because I see that I don't receive an answer, I don't see the Lord so close to me, so I start to examine myself. Maybe there's something wrong, maybe there is sin in me, maybe I lack faith, maybe I lack of humbleness, and I start to examine myself. And this is the purpose for the desert. I start to examine myself to see what am I having, and after I see it, I start placing those things in a prayer in front of Him. And somebody might ask, if He's so powerful, if He's so mighty, why is it He doesn't just change us, and that's it? Why is it He doesn't just do a miracle in us without letting us go through a desert, without letting us see by ourselves which is our condition in sin? He can just change it and make us new persons. Why? Because the purpose for the desert was to humble them as well. Because when I see my condition, when I see my sin, when I see my weakness, because when I go through a desert, when I go through trials, I see those things within me. When I see them, I'm humble. I can go in front of Him, in front of God, with that kind of attitude. And this is what pleases Him, because if I'm proud, His word says that He resists the proud. And this verse is found in the same chapter that we read before, chapter 4 of James, a couple of verses after the one saying that He doesn't answer us because maybe we ask wrongly. And that verse, it says that He resists the proud, but He gives grace to the humble, and this is the attitude that pleases him. And that's why he led the nation of Israel through a desert. That's why sometimes we go through a desert, so that we can acknowledge our condition, so that we can see it by ourselves and be humble. And this is for our good, because he knows our hearts. He knows that we might get proud, and we might get far away from him. That's why he talks in the desert. There we can listen to his voice. In Hosea chapter 2 verse 14 says, "Therefore, behold, I will lure her, will bring her into the wilderness and speak comfort to her." Here it says that he will bring that person to the wilderness to speak comfort to her. And this is his purpose. He wants to speak to us. He wants to talk to us in the wilderness, in the desert, where is nothing else but him. When we're there, we start examining ourselves. We start going deeper into the word. We start digging into the ground until we find something precious. Like the man who dug into the ground and found a rock, he went deeper into the ground and found a solid foundation, that is Jesus. That's the purpose of the desert, and that's the reason for trials in our lives. This is all for our good, because he's a father who loves his children, his sons, and that's why also he corrects us. And that's the purpose. When I see that the prayer is not answered, might be for various reasons. One, because maybe I'm asking for something that's not right. Two, because maybe it's not the time to receive that particular thing. And three, maybe because there's something within me, something that is not good. But when I see something interrupting my relationship with the Lord, I start examining myself. And that's good, and that's why he takes us sometimes in those times of trials that we might not understand at the moment. But this is when we most start to see, to examine ourselves, and you can say that we most grow. Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you want to receive more videos.